Okay, January 15th. We're well into the year. We have to think about a lot of things. We have to get organized for the year. Those things are happening. I mean, for example, tomorrow is the legislative briefing. The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum is organizing this in the Capitol Auditorium at 1:30. And if you want to know what's going on in energy, what's not going on in energy, if you want to know what people are thinking so as to give advice to the legislature on energy, come down 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. Also, January 22nd, which is a week from today, we're doing Hawaii, the state of science, question mark. Do we have science here? We used to have tech. Now I don't think we have that much tech, but maybe the right sequence is first you do the science, then you do the tech. What an idea. Okay, anyway, they did in San Diego, worked well. Mike Sacharski joins me today. He is the principal of Pacific Enterprise Capital International, which has a long name, okay? Yeah. And he told me he was going to tell me why it had a long name. What do you think, Mike?
Well, we did some alterations, and the end result was adding another name to it. But anyway, I'm delighted to be here today, and I hope my voice improves as we go along.
I'm sure it will. I've noticed it got better in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it did, and the cost of living in Hawaii when there's a lot of fog.
Oh, is that what it is? So we're going to call this Community Matters. We're going to call this sort of off an article that I wrote a couple of months ago for the Star Advertiser, where we talked about NextEra and the importance of Hawaii seeing these offshore investments, like the one contemplated by NextEra as important for our economy, and trying to do the right thing to manage the investment process, which I'm afraid we haven't done very well at for past investments, such as comes to mind Superferry, but there are a lot of others like that where we kind of blew it by going too far this way or too far that way, and not using our best skills, our best business skills at managing foreign investment for the benefit of our state. So let's define terms. I really love the subject, and I'm so happy you're here, Mike. Mike is the businessman who has spent, what, 20 plus years in
30 years.
Sorry.
And counting. I was just in Beijing last week.
Yeah, fabulous. I'd like to go around and carry your bag for you, help you out, whatnot.
Well, anyway, I might need that. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, cheap rates. So I'd like, sort of get a handle from him about what he sees as, the definition of the term investment for the discussion to follow.
Yeah. Well, I kind of distinguish between what I call true investment made for real business purposes, as opposed to sort of a managed investment, which brings along with it a lot of baggage, meaning maybe political baggage, maybe collusion and how the deal is done, all those sort of things. And generally speaking, when you're looking at true investment, real investment, it operates on the old architectural principle of form follows function. So you look at the function first. What is the function that is going to be accomplished? How are we going to accomplish it? And then what amount of capital is needed in order to do that? And so in terms of defining investment, I think and most investors, true investor, they're pretty smart, and they operate under that principle. So when we talk about investment coming to Hawaii, there are a lot of motivations, I think, why people look at Hawaii. Maybe many of them are mistaken, but for those investors that come to Hawaii that have a real good business plan, they are operating under this form follows function principle.
Well, for those, it sounds like it's not a hard problem for us. We just want to make sure they follow the rules everybody else has to follow, and let them come in and do their thing. For example, a real estate developer wants to build homes. Oh, he's going to have trouble from the environmental guys. He's going to have trouble from the regulators who want to make him go through the paces. He's going to have to pay big for the land. But that's not too different from the way it is for a local developer. Although a local developer is not not going to have as much money.
Right.
So, I mean, those are the relatively easy ones. I suppose when you change the function, when you change the nature of the business, it gets very different. And you change the unique quality of the nature of the business, it gets different.
And I think what changes that for Hawaii is that we have a lot of need to complete infrastructure projects that require investment. We have an aging, broken infrastructure. You arrive at a third-rate airport, you drive down a fourth-rate interstate, and you stay in an overpriced building somewhere.
But the weather's good.
Well, people say, well, that's the price of paradise. It's not the price of paradise. It's the cost of either ineptitude or collusion or any number of other issues than the original intent of the function. So what makes our discussion interesting is that with all these infrastructure projects that need to be completed in Hawaii, they're piling up sort of, or lining up one after another. And energy, of course, is the most critical, because
yes,
energy, I think you pointed this out in your article, you didn't use this term, but I took away from it that energy is the DNA, if you will, of how we live in this state. Now it is.
And certainly our economy.
Exactly, because it goes across so many areas. The economy, the three areas of an economy are agriculture and your manufacturing, your service industry. It goes across our education, goes across our health and medical services, housing, transportation, leisure, and even security. And so it's very critical that we manage any future development, meaning investment, because it's going to require investment, as a true investment, not as an investment with a lot of baggage, because all the baggage that people will want to pile on it will make the outcome inefficient and ineffective, and in the long run more costly to the way we live.
A true investment is an investment for a return, nothing more, nothing less.
Well, it has clear objectives. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a clear intent, a clear objective. Everyone knows what the objective is. Secondly, there's a clear path to getting to that objective. Thirdly, you know what resources are needed to go down that path to get to that objective. And
on the flip side, what's the kind that's not so clear?
Well, people want to attach agendas to what's the objective, of course.
Okay. Example?
Well, if we're looking at power or energy, which is our DNA, you may have certain interest groups that are going to win or lose by any reformation, reconfiguration of our energy
So it's
assets.
like secondary profit centers or secondary benefit that is not inherent in the deal but is contemplated by the deal.
That's part of it, yes.
Yeah.
So when you look at energy, then it also brings us to the issue of why do companies purchase other companies? Companies purchase other companies because inside the soul of the purchaser, they think they can do a better job.
I'd make more money.
And make more money. And so in the case that we're looking at here in Hawaii, NextEra, or any other company for that matter that's looking at an acquisition, that is what is in their soul. They can do a better job. And to do that, they need to come up with what I would call a better job plan. And usually that better job plan is going to include some of the things that we already talked about. The clear objective, what assets are already there that can be used, what assets are already there that need to be discarded in their estimation to do a better job. What new assets are going to have to be brought in. When you configure the new and the old assets, what's that going to look like? What will be the operational requirement, and requirement meaning both in management, staff, training, facilities, operating funds, and so forth. And then the next thing you need to look at is how you deliver this service to customers, and then how you manage the system once it's up and running.
Yeah.
So an acquiring company thinks they can do all these things better than the company, the predecessor.
And that's a worthy motivation right there.
It is.
We
It
can't
is.
complain about
Right.
that. That's the way business works.
And then that's kind of the trajectory that this country has been built on. And so that's normal. But coming back to our earlier point, people hang a lot of baggage on that. So one way that the management of this can be improved is to keep people from hanging whatever they feel they want to hang on this thing. And you mentioned in your article that the PUC, I believe what you said was, or what you wrote was, that it would be probably a good idea if they had some training session or some preparation or some sort of orientation for a transaction like this, because this is a monumental transaction for the state of Hawaii's future.
Yeah,
And that comes back to our management then,
Yeah.
that because they're a key point of management in this whole process.
What I was saying was, without focusing on any one agency or official, but maybe we can for this show, was that the state in general had to figure out a way to manage these investments. I mean, it goes back to cargo cult. It goes back to the 18th century. So the ship comes in the harbor. It wants to do business in Hawaii. Do we worship them and do anything they want? Some people do that. And certain circumstances may deserve that. I can't think of any, but or do we shoot them with bow and arrow? What do we do? I think that we have kept both of those options alive in all the years to follow. Sometimes people come in and we rule against them and we shoot them up good and we crush their projects. The super ferry was a perfect example of that. Those guys on Wall Street, they put either in or at risk a couple of $100 million, and they lost most of it, if not all of it, because of what happened here. And exactly what happened here is we didn't want a super ferry, even though it is obvious to any thinking person that an island state must be connected and we have to have transportation. We don't have the transportation even now. There hasn't been not a whisper, at least in the last few years, about doing super ferry again. I mean, we need a psychologist for that, not a businessman.
Well, you're right. And there's an element of that in every business transaction. I was just reading before I came to the studio a Wall Street Journal article contrasting the outgoing Texas governor, Perry, with the incoming Texas governor, Abbott, who's going to be inaugurated on Tuesday. And Perry is characterized in the article as somewhat of a cowboy kind of approach to things, and this is the way we do it in Texas, and so that's it. Whereas Abbott is characterized in the article as someone who wants to look at all sides of an issue before making a decision. And much of that comes from his background, because he's a former Texas State Supreme Court Justice. And by nature had to look at different views, weigh different evidence.
It's a credit to the profession.
And then he became the Attorney General of the state. And I think whether you're a former State Supreme Court Justice or whatever you are, I think the ability to progress relies on the ability to look at all views, deliberate, and make a decision on that.
You know,
But
we
we've
just
got
talked
too much
about this.
as you know, we've got too much too much slogan and sloganizing
Right.
and
Knee-jerk.
confrontation and, well, yeah, and you know, not to get off on another topic, but all those movements are well funded. So they're so well funded that that's the way they operate. They have to operate that
Sure,
way
they
because
follow
they've
the
been
money.
funded that way.
The
Exactly.
decision follows the money.
So we need to get that out of our discussion. We need to get the more deliberative people around the state of Hawaii. And I would also submit, Jay, that one of the places we start for deliberation is with some of the innermost Hawaiian people who are connected really with traditional Hawaiian culture, because I believe there are many guidelines and important principles when it comes to issues like energy and lifestyle and DNA of your life that I think have been paved over, so to speak, by modernity, and that we can actually learn a lot from our traditional Hawaiian culture and history and from those Hawaiians that have that and can share it with us. So that would be my starting point in putting together a deliberative model.
Ooh, I like that. We're putting together a deliberative model. We're doing it right now, right here, today, with Mike Sacharski of Pacific Enterprise Capital International on Community Matters. We're talking about managing our foreign investment, a really interesting subject, one we've really got to get better at. I'm Jay Fidell, and we'll be right back. I'm telling you now, we'll be right back. You'll see, we'll be right back. You'll see, you'll see.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We told you we'd be back, and see what happens. MacArthur, he knew this. Mike Sacharski, Pacific Enterprise Capital International, and I, talking about managing our foreign investment, off an article I wrote for the Star Advertiser a couple months ago, here on Community Matters. And there's so many things here. It bristles with issues, considerations, and also solutions. You were fashioning a solution. Don't let me stop you.
Well, as we were talking about bringing together members of the community who can contribute to a deliberative model. And beyond the starting with the Hawaiians, I think we look at other groups that can, when I say groups, people of deliberative inclination and interest. It's going to be interesting. I don't know, because I've been in China, I don't know about the Governor Ige's style and where he, how he manages things, but he's at the front end of his term.
I'm sure he's just developing it now, Mike,
Yeah, and I think that's the good news.
Yeah.
The good news is that he can do that. So to the fact that he is sensitive to the benefits of that model, he can provide the leadership to bring about these deliberative forces from the different corners of the state and the different tiers of our economy and society that can put together a good body.
And see if you agree with me. In our world today, we were talking about this in the last show, people get polarized, groups get polarized, and they see it as an adversarial communication. So I'm never going to agree with you, never. And and you're never going to agree with me. And furthermore, I'm not even going to listen to you. I can't hear you. I'm going to talk only to the people who agree with me. And I'm going to give money to those people. And we collectively are going to mount a campaign against anything you say.
Right.
I mean, I think this showed up very interesting in the election of, or the non-election of Ben Caetano, as mayor a couple of years ago, where the PRP, the union, was just completely adverse to anything he said or did because he was against rail, and that was that. And I mean, I don't think the decision that we collectively made at the time was the right one, and I thought that the way in which we did it was not the right way. But I think this could happen, will happen again, where all the groups round up all their money and all their advocates, don't listen to the other groups, and we aren't having a conversation that's consistent with any good cultural values. We are at opposite sides of everything.
Right.
And we've got to get over that if we're going to do what you're talking about. So, question, hard one. How do we get over that?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I think we need to do something about the money trail. I want to say money trail. Because again, what is creating this demolition derby of competing interests and so forth is the fact that there's so much money behind it. I was thinking during this last election, when I was here in Hawaii this last fall, I was amazed at all the money that came from the mainland to support all the campaigns. I can't think of too many campaigns, if any, that didn't have mainland money. And that mainland money distorts the campaign. And I was thinking, I wonder if it could be possible that someday we would be able to, as a state, prohibit the use of mainland money representing mainland interests and make the election local again, like it used to be. So bringing that same idea back around to what we're talking about, I think the first solution is to find some way to cut off mainland money and mainland interest and get back to Hawaii money and Hawaii interest, which is deliberative by nature. So that's number one. Number two, I think Hawaii is being forced gradually into having to be more deliberative because the condition that we're living in, Hawaii is not sustainable in any aspect for very long. And as it becomes less sustainable, people who previously benefited from the old system, the cargo cult system that delivered on a regular schedule their sustenance and their well-being and so on, those lines are drying up. And so we're going to be forced into looking at each other and sharing with each other ideas on how we solve our problems. So in one respect, we need to do something about the money flow. In the second respect, it's already happened in the sense that I think people are coming to the realization that it's not going to be the status quo very long. And if we don't make any changes and become more cooperative in how we solve our problems, then we'll be the Haiti of the Pacific.
Yeah, backwater. Yeah,
exactly.
It's at our door, as far as I can see.
Right.
So it's interesting how this is resonant, although I don't agree with it on many other points, but it's resonant with the whole sovereignty movement. Let's
Yeah.
let's be self-reliant. Let's go back to the old ways. Let's grow our own food. Take care of ourselves without any help.
Yeah.
This is not going to be good when you want a McDonald's burger.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you what. I don't think there's a certain distance down the road that we can go to that, but not very far. We're going to have to be interdependent with the rest of the world, but we're going to have to make our decisions. We're going to decide how we're going to be interdependent with the rest of the world.
Right.
And so um, that brings us back to the investment,
Yes.
because we cannot be sustainable, we cannot be interdependent with the rest of the world without
We
outside
need the
investment.
Absolutely critically need the investment
Absolutely.
to stay relevant, to stay current on things. I mean, you know, what do they say? I mean, we have $40 billion worth of unfunded liabilities. And at least a substantial part of that is going to have to be funded with outside investment. We're never going to get that money here. So we have to raise the money outside. So the question is, there's two questions, or maybe more. One is, how do we draw people to do that, to make investment in Hawaii? The guys at Lehman or whoever it was who invested and lost in the super ferry, they're not coming back anytime soon.
Right.
And the people who know them, you know, and who watched that debacle, they're not coming back anytime soon. So we have to find a way to draw the money, and then we have to find a way to manage the money on a balance so that it works for those guys and it also works for us. This is very complicated business.
It is, and Hawaii is at the bottom of most business, best places to do business surveys. So that's the first thing we have to clean up, because people are aware of that. They do their due diligence, and so they're aware that we're not a friendly place to do business in. You know, if we go back to one company buying another company, and let's say it's in the area of energy, you know, what is it, going back to the I can do better plan, what is it that they're looking to do? Well, the first thing they need to have is an environment for free cash flow. They want to bring in cash, they want to bring it in freely, and then they want to circulate it freely. Second thing is, as I said, reconfigure. They want to bring in new assets to go with the new assets. They want the freedom to reconfigure those assets into the most effective organization that they can do. Then they position those assets, and then they want to be able to manage the entity and provide the service. So the question is Hawaii the best place to do that? And when they ask that question, they've got a list of risks. The first risk is market risk. Is there a big enough market, sustainable market? Another risk they're going to look at is implementation risk. And how easy.
What is that? What is the
Well, implementation risk is how easy or how difficult is it to implement your service, implement your organization and service. I just had a discussion yesterday with a business here in Hawaii who got to the very last minute of a potential sale, talking about outside investment coming to Hawaii. And the potential purchaser, they had an out clause at the last minute. They took advantage of it because when they got out here and really sat down, because this particular business is spread across 4 islands. And when they came out and really sat down and started to simulate what it would be like to implement, to operate, they said, we can't do it. Now, we operate in 5 states in Hawaii, or on the mainland, but those 5 states are contiguous. There are commonalities between those 5 states, but the 4 states here, the 4 islands here, although they're not that far apart, have 4 very much different cultures and characteristics to them. And so it's going to cost us more than we're willing to pay to implement the service.
Yeah. Oh, that's, you know, it's funny.
So that's what so there's the implement, and then there's the regulatory risk and profit risk and so on. So what the company wants to do, or what the outside investment wants to do, is they want to accomplish a certain return on investment. So when Hawaii goes out around the world, first question is, how easy is it to do business in Hawaii? What are my risks going to be, including the implementation risk? And am I going to make my targeted return on investment? And the indications are that there are so many barriers and hoops and things to jump over that you might as well go somewhere else where it's easier. The paradise, we've lived for a long time. When I say we, the people who have sort of managed some of our past ventures and state, they've gone on the basis of we've got this paradise premium.
They'll be the
that can't
path
be
to
beat.
our door. The investors will be the
No,
path to
there
our
is
door.
there is no more paradise premium.
Yeah.
It's disappearing.
Yeah.
I can't even come down here in clean air
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of people here who are selling. They know, I believe in my heart, they know the paradise premium is disappearing, but they're selling it as fast as they can before it disappears.
Right.
Now, I was in Beijing about a year ago, talked to a very important person there about a conference in Hawaii. And he said, Mike, great idea, fantastic, but here in China, the view is that the most important things in the world happen in London, New York, or Washington, New York, London, maybe Paris, and Singapore, maybe Tokyo. And if you're not in one of those cities, then you're not considered important. So what are you going to do in Hawaii to tell people in China that you're just as important or more important than these places that they believe are the most important? Well, the same thing when it comes to investment. There are investment destinations around the world that have far greater appeal than we do. So do we take a back seat? No. We have to figure out, okay, how do we make ourselves a highly sought after, which I believe we can do, differentiated investment destination?
I'm falling on my chair, you know. I have to have your answer on that.
Oh,
I need to
well-
know step by step what we need to do. I mean, we have to carve it in stone and send it out on the airwaves. That's Mike Sacharski, Pacific Enterprise Capital International, a businessman of the finest international caliber. And we're talking on Community Matters here about managing our foreign investment, keeping up with other cities in the world, bringing capital in, making people feel Hawaii's a friendly place, and ultimately, you know, achieving the investment we need to survive, isolated in the middle of the Pacific. This is serious business, and Mike Sacharski is going to tell us exactly how to do that. I can hardly wait. This is going to be a short break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Okay, we're going to focus on the things we need to do, the things we can do best. Here with Mike Sacharski, Pacific Enterprise Capital International, talking about managing our foreign investment. This is a really big question, and ThinkTech will not let it go. We want to know, Mike, how to do this. So tell us step one.
Well, I think the principle, the number one thing to understand is that we cannot compete with other investment destinations for what I would call look-alike investments. Because each destination really is special. They have their own unique characteristics. And if we're trying to compete to have a look-alike kind of project, we're going to lose. So we need to create our own unique inventory or portfolio, if you will, of investment opportunities. And again, I think there's some inspiration from the Hawaiian community and inclusion of the Hawaiian community in the definition of those portfolio opportunities. But I think we've got a very unique situation in that we're positioned where we are. We're 20 degrees north of the equator, and so that's the first thing. How do we take advantage of that? Who needs something that's 20 degrees? And by the way, I'm involved right now in a satellite project, so I can tell you that there's a lot of interest in locations around the world that are 20 degrees north or south of the equator. And then what natural advantages do we have due to the fact that we are 7, 8 islands,
You know,
that we are.
The tension on that, which Steve Petranek discussed at one of our recent lunch conferences, is that we have great environment. And we do a lot of research on environment. We are a world authority on many issues around environment. And it draws a lot of people who come here for the environment. But what you get is an electorate and a sort of a body politic of people who want to protect the environment against any kind of project that may even, in the most distant sense, that may have a negative effect, an adverse effect on the environment. And so what you get is this kind of, you can't do that here. And I think so you get attention of, we don't want you here, you can't do it here, we don't want you to touch our precious environment, even though it is one of our biggest resources. And then on the other hand, you get people who say, investors, who say you're just trying to stop us from progress. And we're not going to do that. And then they say, no, you're not going to do that. And Hawaii becomes the state that says no on both sides of the equation. And how do you alleviate that when everybody is hoo at each other and suspicious of each other? I'm suspicious that you're going to make trouble for me. You're going to hold me up 10 years like the way they did in the 30-meter telescope. And still there's litigation pending.
Yeah.
No sooner did they open the place up than another lawsuit. And then, of course, then the other kind of paranoia is that this company has political resources and money resources under Citizens United, and they're going to find a way to get whatever they want because they know how to do the political twist, and therefore we don't trust them about anything. This is really not working well. So how do we get by that kind of paranoia?
Yeah. I think that brings us, I don't want to sort of repeat what I said earlier, but it brings us back to some of the earlier issues, because we're running out of time to argue. We're running out of time to have positions that don't allow for any kind of consideration of other. We're just simply running out of time. So I think, and that's the choice the people of Hawaii make. They can either continue that and drive it into the ground, or at what point, because I think, Jay, I had a discussion the other day on political change in Hawaii. I think there's potential for great political change over the next 15 to 20 years. My projection is it'll happen over 15, it's going to take about 6 elections. Why? Because people who previously didn't understand the issues, see the issues, they're now being touched personally by the issues themselves.
These are young people?
Everybody, elderly and young, and people who were born and raised here, people who came here from somewhere else. Everybody is. And so I sense that there's an awakening going on, not to accept the status quo and the way things have been done. And it may take 15 to 20 years to bring us along to where we have a discussion or an environment where we can have the kind of discussion we're talking about on what are our special investment
I hear you. And
portfolio
that's
here.
discouraging that it would take that long for us to get to, a solution to the investment problem.
It's a generation. Part of it's generational,
Yeah.
and you're just going to have to wait until certain generations leave the scene, and as they're replaced by other who are more aware of the issues. And it's already started. It started maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And
Is there anything we can do now?
well,
You mentioned about trying to stop foreign political contributions. I have concerns that that might not be constitutional, but anything like that we can do right now, the legislature can trundle off next week and do something?
Well, I think so, and again, I think it's comes up to our newly elected governor. He's the man, and so what's going to happen? He's going to set the tone. He's going to set the pace. Now, he doesn't do it alone, obviously, because he's got the legislature that he has to work with. So it's a question of whether or not leadership in the legislature is going to step up as well, or are they going to just kind of fall back into the old habits?
What would you tell them? I mean, let's assume that if everybody got on the same page right now about this,
I would say the first...
How should we best manage foreign investment? What would you tell the legislature they should do, or the people they should do?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to prioritize. I mean, we talked about all the infrastructure projects, and form follows function. We talked about that at the beginning of the program. So the first thing is to prioritize what needs to be done, and in the order that it needs to be done. And then that's the function, identify the functions. Not a long list, but maybe the top 3 or 4 for the next 4 years, let's say. And then look at the form, okay, how then can we best, with using foreign investment, and that foreign investment may be coming from the mainland as well as from overseas, it's foreign to Hawaii. How can we best channel foreign investment to achieve these things, and create an environment for the investors to do the things that we were talking about earlier, because that's what investors do. This is the way they think. So they've got to create an environment that will allow them to have free cash flow. When I say free cash flow, freely move their money in and distribute it, so forth. That list we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Well, you know, I saw something in the paper, I want to say within the last couple of days, about how the Chinese were investing in some property here in Honolulu. And what was interesting about it was that it was almost saying that, in case you were wondering whether they have or have not, yes, they have. And here's this relatively modest property that they're investing in. And I'm saying, no, that doesn't get my blood boiling to hear that news. I'd like to see bigger investments. I'd like to see investments in things that really make a difference rather than buying real estate. But Query, you're familiar with the Chinese investment mentality, and let's take the last few minutes of this discussion to talk about whether the Chinese would be, aside from that conversation you had with the guy you mentioned, whether the Chinese would be useful investors for us, and if so, would they be in for the big bucks? And if so, what can we do to manage it so it goes right?
Yeah. Well, we don't have a lot here that the Chinese investors, by and large, want to invest in. You get the occasional investor that buys a property, as you said, or maybe a golf course, or that sort of thing. But they're looking for investments that are more suited for continental economies rather than an island economy. So I think by nature of what it is they're looking for right now, it's probably not, we shouldn't, going back to cargo cult, we shouldn't be waiting for huge Chinese investment to come in and snap up HECO or something.
Well, maybe we have to go and talk to them, Mike. You know, on your next trip, I'm going to go with you, okay? We'll try to get them to, say, fund another super ferry. Who knows? That's Mike Sacharski, Pacific Enterprise Capital International. Regrettably, we're out of time on this very important topic, but I feel certain we'll talk about it again. The topic is managing our foreign investment. That means getting people to invest in Hawaii in substantial numbers, and then managing it so it works for everybody. And we get a good reputation finally, and we look better on the charts here on Community Matters. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Mike, for coming around.
Jay, thanks a lot.
Aloha.